The November rain fell in sheets across Chicago's South Side, turning the streets into rivers of reflected neon and headlights. Marcus Thompson stood under the flickering fluorescent lights of Thompson's Auto Repair, wiping transmission fluid from his hands with a rag that had seen better days. The clock on the wall read 8:47 p.m. He should have closed an hour ago, but Mrs. Patterson's Civic needed new brakes, and she needed her car to get to her nursing job in the morning. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Marcus glanced through the rain-streaked window at the empty street. Most businesses on this block had closed years ago, boarded-up storefronts with faded signs, chain-link fences around empty lots. But his garage remained, a small beacon of warm light in a neighborhood that had learned to survive on grit and faith. He was a man built for endurance rather than speed. 36 years old, 6'2" with broad shoulders that came from years of wrestling with stubborn bolts and lifting engine blocks. His hands were permanently stained with grease, the lines in his palms dark as ink. A wedding ring still circled his left finger, though his wife had been gone for 3 years. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. 3 years since cancer had taken Simone from him, leaving him with 4 children and a grief so deep he sometimes forgot to breathe. But he couldn't afford to drown in it. Not with Jeremiah, age 9, Maya, age 7, the twins DeAndre and Destiny, both 5, all depending on him to keep the world steady. The morning routine started at 5:30 a.m. sharp. Marcus would brew coffee in the old percolator Simone had bought at a yard sale, the one she'd insisted made the best coffee in Chicago. While it bubbled and hissed, he'd wake the kids. Jeremiah first, because the boy was responsible and could help with the little ones. Then Maya, who always woke up singing. Then the twins, who slept tangled together like puppies. Breakfast was usually oatmeal or scrambled eggs. Toast with butter when money was good, just butter when it wasn't. The kids would sit around their small kitchen table, the yellow formica chipped at the edges, while Marcus braided Maya's hair into neat cornrows. His fingers had learned the rhythm of it. Part, grease, braid, secure. Simone had taught him during her last months, her hands guiding his until he could do it blind. "Daddy, you're pulling too tight," Maya would say, and he'd loosen his grip, kiss the top of her head. "Sorry, baby girl. Daddy's still learning." Jeremiah would help the twins with their shoes, packing their backpacks with the lunch Marcus had made the night before. Peanut butter sandwiches, apple slices, a juice box each. Money was always tight. Marcus charged fair prices, often too fair. When Mrs. Patterson couldn't pay her full bill, he'd wave away half of it. When young Jerome's transmission gave out and the kid needed his car to get to community college, Marcus fixed it for cost and let him pay in installments. His mother, who lived 2 blocks away, would shake her head at him. "Marcus, you got 4 babies to feed. You can't be giving away your work." But he couldn't help it. He'd grown up in this neighborhood, knew what it meant to need help and not be able to ask. His father had been a mechanic too, had taught him that your worth wasn't measured by your bank account but by whether you slept easy at night. The garage was small, just 2 bays and a cramped office piled with invoices and car manuals. On the wall hung a photograph of him and Simone on their wedding day. Her in a simple white dress from David's bridal, him in a rented tux that was slightly too big. They were laughing, foreheads pressed together, her hand on his chest. Next to it, a bulletin board covered in the kids' drawings. Stick figures labeled Daddy, Me, hearts and stars in crayon. Evenings were chaos. Pick up the kids from his mother's house where they stayed after school. DeAndre would immediately launch into a story about recess, talking so fast the words tumbled over each other. Destiny would show him a drawing. Always horses, she was obsessed with horses. Maya would practice her reading aloud while Marcus made dinner, usually something simple. Spaghetti, chicken and rice, hot dogs and mac and cheese when the budget was particularly tight. After dinner came homework, baths, the nightly negotiation about bedtime. Jeremiah was getting old enough to want to stay up later, to assert his independence. Marcus would sit on the edge of his bed and they'd talk. About school, about friends, about the father Jeremiah was becoming without a mother to guide him. "You're doing good, son," Marcus would say. "Your mama would be proud." The twins shared a room, bunk beds that Marcus had found on Craigslist and refinished himself. He'd read them stories until their eyes grew heavy. Dr. Seuss and The Snowy Day, books Simone had loved. Maya slept in what used to be the office, her room painted lavender, stuffed animals arranged on her bed with meticulous care. At night, after all four were asleep, Marcus would sit in the living room of their small bungalow, beer in hand, and let himself feel it. The exhaustion, the loneliness, the fear that he wasn't enough. That his kids deserved better than hand-me-down clothes and a father who smelled like motor oil even after he showered. He hadn't dated since Simone died. Couldn't imagine it. Couldn't imagine someone else in her space. Couldn't imagine his kids calling another woman anything other than a stranger. His heart had room for exactly 5 people, and it was full. On Sundays, they went to Greater Hope Baptist, the church where he and Simone had married. The kids would dress in their good clothes, modest but clean, ironed carefully. They'd sit in the 3rd row, same spot every week, and Marcus would close his eyes during the hymns, his mother's voice strong beside him, his children wiggling and whispering around him, and he'd feel Simone there, a warmth in his chest. Pastor Jenkins would sometimes catch his eye, give him a knowing nod. The congregation looked out for the Thompson family, brought casseroles, offered hand-me-down winter coats, invited the kids to birthday parties. It was community, real and solid, the kind of wealth that didn't show up on a tax return. Marcus had learned to count pennies. Every month was a calculation: rent, utilities, groceries, car insurance, the small life insurance policy for the kids. He kept a coffee can in the kitchen where he'd drop spare change, counting it out when they were short. Some months they made it with $5 to spare. Some months his mother would slip him a 20 when he wasn't looking, and he'd find it in his jacket pocket later, his throat tight with gratitude and shame. But they were making it. The kids were healthy, doing well in school. Jeremiah had joined the chess club. Maya was learning piano from Sister Ruth at church. The twins were in kindergarten, thriving despite their shyness. Marcus was keeping all the plates spinning, all the balls in the air, running on coffee and determination and the memory of a promise he'd made to Simone. "Take care of our babies," she'd whispered in the hospital, her hand so thin in his. "And Marcus, don't forget you deserve to be happy too." He'd kissed her knuckles, unable to speak. Now, standing in his garage as the rain poured down, he heard the sound of an engine. Expensive, smooth, not the rough idle of the cars that usually came his way. He looked up to see a silver Mercedes pull to the curb, hazard lights flashing. The driver's door opened and a woman stepped out into the rain. She was dressed for a different world. A charcoal business suit that probably cost more than Marcus's monthly rent, heels that clicked on the wet pavement. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail, makeup perfect despite the weather. She was black, mid-30s maybe, with sharp cheekbones and an air of command that seemed at odds with the uncertainty in her eyes as she looked at her car. Steam rose from under the hood. Marcus grabbed his umbrella, a broken one held together with duct tape, and walked out into the rain. "You okay, miss?" She turned, surprised. Up close he could see the exhaustion in her face, the tightness around her mouth. "My car it started smoking. I don't know what happened." Marcus peered under the hood, rain dripping off the edge of the umbrella. "Radiator hose. Looks like it burst. You been driving long?" "From downtown. I have to get to—" She stopped, checked her phone. The screen was black, dead. Her shoulders sagged. "I need to get to Evanston, tonight." "Not in this car you won't," Marcus said gently. "Radiator's shot. I can fix it, but not tonight. Need to get parts and nothing's open. Till morning." She looked at him, then at the dark street, then back at her car. For a moment, something cracked in her composure, a flash of genuine fear, quickly hidden. "I see." "Come inside," Marcus said. "Get out of the rain. We can figure this out." She hesitated, and he understood. A woman alone, a stranger's garage, a neighborhood she didn't know. He stepped back, giving her space. "I'm Marcus. I've owned this shop for 10 years. You can call someone if you need to. Use my phone. I'm just trying to help." Something in his voice, or maybe the gentleness in his eyes, made her nod. She followed him into the garage, her heels echoing on the concrete. Inside, Marcus offered her the chair from his office, a rolling desk chair with a rip in the vinyl. She sat carefully, looking around at the organized chaos of tools, the calendar from the auto parts store, the kids' drawings on the wall. "I'm Diane," she said finally. "Nice to meet you, Diane. Let me take a look at what we're dealing with." He examined the car more carefully, taking notes. The radiator hose had blown, but there was also a small leak in the radiator itself. Probably been building for weeks, ignored because her car was new enough that she'd never had to think about maintenance. "You're looking at about 400 in parts and labor," he said. "I can have it ready by tomorrow afternoon." $400. He watched her face, saw the quick mental calculation, the relief that it wasn't worse. "That's fine, thank you." "You need a ride somewhere? I can call you a cab." She shook her head. "My phone's dead and She stopped. "I don't know anyone in this part of the city." The rain hammered harder on the roof. Marcus glanced at the clock. 9:15. His mother would have already put the kids to bed. "Look," he said, "I live about 10 minutes from here. You can charge your phone, call someone to pick you up. My mom's there with my kids, so—" He wanted her to know she'd be safe, that this wasn't anything other than what it was. Diane looked at him for a long moment. He met her gaze steadily. No pressure, just an offer. "Okay," she said quietly. "Thank you." They drove in Marcus's truck, a 2008 Ford F-150 with a dent in the passenger door and seats that smelled faintly of French fries and air freshener. The radio played low, gospel station, soft in the background. Neither of them spoke much. Diane stared out the window at the passing streets. She'd spent the last 15 years building an empire, climbing from poverty to power, and now she sat in a stranger's truck in a neighborhood that looked like the one she'd escaped, feeling more lost than she had in years. Her name wasn't just Diane. It was Diane Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell Holdings, a real estate development company worth $2.3 billion. Her face had been on the cover of Black Enterprise 3 times. She had homes in Lincoln Park, Los Angeles, and Martha's Vineyard. She wore custom suits and flew first class and hadn't thought about the price of anything in over a decade. But she'd also just walked out of a meeting where her own board had tried to force her out, where men she'd made rich had questioned her vision, her competence, her right to lead the company she'd built from nothing. The meeting had gone until 8 p.m., vicious and personal, and she'd left shaking with rage and something else, a fear she didn't want to name. She'd been driving aimlessly, trying to calm down, when the car started smoking. Now she was in a truck that probably needed new shocks, driven by a man in grease-stained jeans who'd offered help without hesitation, without knowing who she was, without wanting anything. It was the most genuine interaction she'd had in months. Marcus pulled up to a small bungalow with a chain-link fence and a tiny yard. The porch light was on. Through the window, Diane could see a living room, modest furniture, toys scattered on the floor, a cross on the wall. "Come on," Marcus said. Inside, an older woman sat on the couch folding laundry. She looked up, surprised, her eyes moving from Marcus to Diane with quick assessment. "Mama, this is Diane. Her car broke down near the shop. She needs to charge her phone." His mother stood, a short woman with graying hair and neat braids, wearing a house dress and slippers. "Lord have mercy, you're soaked. Come in, baby. I'm Lorraine." "Thank you, Mrs. "Just Lorraine. You hungry? I've got leftovers." Before Diane could answer, a small voice called from the hallway, "Grandma, I can't sleep." A little girl appeared, maybe 7 years old, wearing pajamas covered in unicorns. She stopped when she saw Diane, her eyes going wide. "Maya, what did I tell you about staying in bed?" Marcus said, but his voice was gentle. "I had a bad dream." Maya walked over to him and he scooped her up without hesitation, settling her on his hip like she weighed nothing. "This is Miss Diane," he said. "Her car broke down, so she's visiting for a bit." Maya stared at Diane with unabashed curiosity. "You're pretty. Are you a princess?" Diane felt a genuine smile crack through her exhaustion. "No, sweetheart, just a regular person. Daddy says everyone's special, even if they're regular." "Your daddy's smart." Marcus's cheeks colored slightly. "All right, baby girl, back to bed. Can Miss Diane tuck me in?" The request hung in the air. Marcus started to protest, but Diane surprised herself. "I'd like that, if that's okay?" Marcus looked at her, something shifting in his expression. "Yeah, okay." Maya led Diane down a narrow hallway to a small room painted lavender. The bed was covered in stuffed animals, a bookshelf overflowing with picture books. Diane sat on the edge of the bed as Maya climbed under the covers. "Will you read me a story?" Diane picked up the book on the nightstand. The Snowy Day. She hadn't read to a child in... she couldn't remember how long. Her own childhood had been devoid of bedtime stories, of tucking in, of this kind of gentle routine. She read slowly, her voice steadying. Maya's eyes grew heavy. By the last page, the little girl was asleep, her breathing soft and even. Diane sat there for a moment longer than necessary, looking at this child who'd asked a stranger to tuck her in, who lived in a house full of worn furniture and homemade love. Something in her chest ached. When she returned to the living room, Marcus was sitting at the kitchen table, her phone plugged into the wall. Lorraine had set out a plate, leftover chicken, green beans, cornbread. "You didn't have to." "Sit," Lorraine said firmly. "You look like you haven't eaten all day." It was true. Diane had skipped lunch, too anxious about the board meeting. She sat and took a bite. The food was simple but good, seasoned with care. Marcus watched her eat. "Your phone should be charged enough to make a call soon." "Thank you." Lorraine settled back on the couch with her laundry. "You from around here?" "No, I grew up in Altgeld Gardens, but I haven't been back in years." Lorraine's expression softened. "That's a tough neighborhood to come out of." It was. Diane took another bite. "My mother cleaned houses. My father wasn't around much. And now I run a company." "What kind?" "Real estate development." Marcus glanced up, something flickering in his eyes. "Big buildings, that kind of thing?" "Yes." An uncomfortable silence settled. Lorraine broke it. "Well, you did good for yourself, baby. That's something to be proud of." But Diane didn't feel proud. She felt hollow. When her phone finally powered on, it immediately began buzzing. Texts, emails, voicemails piling up. 57 notifications. Her assistant, her lawyers, board members, journalists, the noise of her life rushing back. She silenced it. "You can use the phone to call someone," Marcus reminded her gently. But Diane realized she didn't know who to call. Her assistant would just stress her out more. Her so-called friends were really business associates. She had no family left, no one who'd come get her at 10 p.m. just because she needed help. "Actually," she heard herself say, "is there a hotel nearby? I can get a car in the morning." "Closest decent hotel is 30 minutes away," Lorraine said, "and I don't like the idea of you going out there this time of night. You can stay here. We got a couch." "I couldn't." "You could, and you will," Lorraine said with the kind of finality that brooked no argument. Marcus brought her a pillow and a blanket that smelled like lavender detergent. "Bathroom's down the hall. Help yourself to anything you need." After they'd all gone to bed, Diane lay on the couch in the dark, listening to the house settle around her. Somewhere down the hall, A child coughed softly. The refrigerator hummed. Rain still pattered against the windows. She'd slept in five-star hotels around the world, in penthouses and luxury suites. But this worn couch in this small house felt safer than anywhere. She'd been in years. For the first time in weeks, Diane slept soundly. Morning came with the sound of children's laughter and the smell of coffee. Diane woke disoriented, forgetting for a moment where she was. Then she heard Marcus's voice, low and patient, and a child responding. "Daddy, why is there a pretty lady on our couch?" "Because she needed help, DeAndre. Now go brush your teeth." Diane sat up, acutely aware of her wrinkled suit, her hair that had come loose from its ponytail, the makeup she'd slept in. She looked nothing like the polished CEO who commanded boardrooms. Marcus appeared in the doorway, already dressed in work clothes, jeans and a flannel shirt, steel-toed boots. "Morning. Hope the kids didn't wake you too early." "No, Thank you for letting me stay. Bathroom's free if you want to freshen up. Mama's making breakfast." Diane found her way to the small bathroom. It was clean but crowded. 4 toothbrushes in a cup, bath toys on the edge of the tub, a step stool so the little ones could reach the sink. She washed her face with hand soap, did her best to fix her hair. When she emerged, all 4 children were at the kitchen table. Jeremiah, the oldest, watched her with guarded curiosity. Maya beamed. The twins, a boy and girl who looked identical except for their hair, stared openly. "Everybody, this is Miss Diane," Marcus said. "We're going to be polite and give her some space, right?" A chorus of "Yes, Daddy" followed. Lorraine set a plate in front of Diane. Scrambled eggs, toast, a slice of bacon. "Coffee, please, black." Diane ate while the family moved around her in comfortable chaos. Marcus braided Maya's hair while quizzing Jeremiah on his spelling words. Lorraine helped the twins find matching socks. It was orchestrated disorder, everyone knowing their role. "Miss Diane," Maya said suddenly, "do you have kids?" "No, sweetheart." "Why not?" "Maya," Marcus warned. "It's okay," Diane said. The truth was complicated. She'd spent so many years focused on building her company that relationships had seemed like distractions. The few men she'd dated had either been intimidated by her success or wanted to use it. "I guess I just haven't met the right person." "My mama died," Maya said matter-of-factly. "But she's in heaven now. Daddy says she watches over us." Diane's throat tightened. "I'm sure she does." After breakfast, Marcus loaded the kids into his truck to drop them at school. "You want to come to the shop? I can start on your car." "Yes, thank you." At the garage, Diane watched Marcus work. His hands moved with practiced confidence, diagnosing the problem, ordering parts on an ancient computer in his office. He explained everything he was doing, not talking down to her but making sure she understood. "You really care about this," she observed. "About fixing cars? About doing it right?" Marcus straightened, wiping his hands. "My dad used to say, every car has a story. Every person trusting you with their car is trusting you with their life. So yeah, I care." Diane's phone buzzed again. She'd been ignoring it all morning, but now her assistant's name flashed across the screen. She answered. "Diane, thank God. Where are you? The board is demanding a meeting. Lawrence is telling people you've had a breakdown." "I'm fine, Kim. Tell them I'll be back tomorrow." "Tomorrow. Diane, they're moving forward with the vote to remove you as CEO. You need to be here." Diane closed her eyes. "Let them vote. I'll handle it when I get back." She hung up before Kim could protest. Marcus had heard enough to understand. "You in trouble at work?" "You could say that." "The kind of trouble where people forget what you built?" She looked at him sharply. "How did you—" "I've seen it happen. People get successful, other people get jealous. Start thinking they could do it better." He returned to the engine. "But I'm guessing you didn't get where you are by letting people push you around." "No," Diane said quietly. "I didn't." But she felt tired. So tired of fighting, of proving herself, of being the only black woman in rooms full of men who'd been handed their power instead of earning it. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure." "Why did you help me last night? You didn't know me. I could have been anyone." Marcus paused. "You needed help. That's enough. Most people wouldn't see it that way." "Then most people are missing the point." He met her eyes. "My wife, Simone, she used to say we're all just walking each other home. Sometimes you're the one who needs help. Sometimes you're the one who gives it. It balances out." Diane felt something shift in her chest. She sounds like she was special. She was. Marcus's expression softened. "Cancer took her 3 years ago. Some days I still pick up the phone to call her, forgetting she's gone. I'm sorry." "Me too." He returned to the car. "But I've got 4 reasons to keep going, so I do." They worked in companionable silence. Diane found herself helping, handing Marcus tools, holding a flashlight where he needed it. Her manicured nails got dirty. Her expensive suit acquired grease stains. She didn't care. Around noon, Lorraine appeared with lunch, sandwiches and chips in a paper bag. "Thought you two might be hungry." They ate, sitting on the curb outside the garage watching traffic pass. Regular people going about regular lives, no one recognizing Diane, no one wanting anything from her. "This must seem pretty boring to you," Marcus said. "Compared to your life." "Actually," Diane said slowly, "it's the most peace I've felt in years." That afternoon, Marcus had to pick up the kids from school. "You can wait here, or can I come?" He looked surprised but nodded. At the elementary school, children poured out like a dam had burst. Maya spotted them and ran over, launching herself at Marcus. He caught her easily, spinning her once before setting her down. "Miss Diane, you're still here." "I am." The twins appeared, shyer than their sister. Jeremiah hung back, his backpack slung over one shoulder, clearly too old for public displays of affection but young enough to stay close. On the drive back to the garage, Maya chattered about her day. She'd gotten a gold star in reading. DeAndre had shared his snack with a boy who'd forgotten his. Destiny had drawn a picture of a horse that her teacher said was very good. Jeremiah was quiet. Marcus glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "You okay, son?" "Yeah." But his voice was tight. At the garage, while the younger kids did homework and Marcus finished with the Mercedes, Diane sat with Jeremiah in the small office. "You don't have to talk to me," she said. "But I'm a good listener if you need one." Jeremiah picked at his backpack strap. "You're leaving tomorrow, right? When your car's fixed?" "Probably." "That's what I thought." He looked up, and she saw his father in his eyes. The same gentleness, but also a wariness that no 9-year-old should have. "People always leave." Diane's heart cracked. "Your dad didn't leave." "I know, but my mom did. And my grandpa. And Miss Rodriguez. She was our neighbor and she was nice. But then she moved away." He blinked hard. "Maya thinks you're going to stay. But you won't. You've got that look." "What look?" "The look people get when they're just visiting our life. Like we're temporary." Diane didn't know what to say. Because he was right. She was just visiting. She had a company to save, a life waiting in Lincoln Park, a world that had nothing to do with this garage or this family. But sitting there, watching this boy try so hard to be strong, she realized something. She didn't want to leave. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. That evening, Marcus invited her back to the house for dinner. She should have said no, should have gotten a hotel, created distance. Instead, she said yes. Dinner was spaghetti, homemade sauce that had been simmering all day at Lorraine's house, bread from the discount bakery, a salad with iceberg lettuce. The kids set the table, each one knowing their job. Maya folded napkins. DeAndre filled water glasses. Destiny put out forks. They ate family style, passing bowls, everyone talking over each other. Diane sat between Maya and Jeremiah, and when Maya reached over to hold her hand for grace, something in Diane's throat went tight. "Lord, thank you for this food," Lorraine said. "Thank you for family, for friends old and new, for your protection and provision. Amen." "Amen," everyone echoed. After dinner, the kids begged Diane to play cards with them. They taught her Go, Fish, and Uno, cheating cheerfully and laughing when she called them on it. Marcus washed dishes at the sink, glancing over his shoulder every so often, a small smile on his face. Later, after the kids were in bed, Diane and Marcus sat on the front porch. The November air was cold, but Marcus had brought out a blanket. "They like you," he said. "I like them. All of them." She paused. "Jeremiah said something to me today. He said I had the look of someone who's just visiting." Marcus nodded slowly. "He's protective. He's had to be. He's right, though. I am just visiting. I have to go back to my life. Do you want to?" The question hung between them. Diane thought about her penthouse apartment, beautiful and empty, designer furniture no one ever sat on, a kitchen she never cooked in. She thought about her office, her assistant, her board of directors who wanted her gone. "I built that company from nothing," she said. "I was 23, working 3 jobs, and I saw an opportunity, a building in Bronzeville that everyone said was worthless. I got a loan, barely, bought it, renovated it, sold it for triple what I paid. Then I did it again, and again. That's impressive. It was survival. I never wanted to be poor again, never wanted to feel powerless." She looked at him. "But somewhere along the way, I stopped building and started defending. Every day is a fight to keep what I have, to prove I deserve it." "Do you?" "Deserve it?" "No. Do you still want it? Or are you fighting for something you've outgrown?" No one had ever asked her that. Diane sat with the question, feeling its weight. "I don't know," she admitted. Marcus was quiet for a moment. "After Simone died, people kept telling me I needed to move on. Date again, find someone new. Like she was a phase I was supposed to get over." He shook his head. "But grief doesn't work like that. And neither does knowing yourself. Sometimes you have to sit with the hard questions." "How long did you sit with them?" "Still am." He smiled slightly. "But I've got clarity on what matters. My kids, this neighborhood, being able to look myself in the mirror. That's more than most people have." "It's enough." Diane's phone buzzed. Another message from Kim, increasingly frantic. The board had scheduled an emergency meeting for tomorrow at 2 p.m. If she didn't attend, they'd vote without her. She stood. "I need to go back to the city. Tonight." Marcus stood too. "Your car won't be ready until tomorrow afternoon. I'll get a car service. At 11 p.m.? She pulled up the app on her phone. The nearest available driver was 45 minutes away. She could wait, or... "I'll drive you," Marcus said. "You have the kids. Mama can stay with them. It's an hour there and back. I'll be home before midnight." "Marcus, you've already done so much." "Diane." He said her name gently but firmly. "Let me help." She looked at him. This man who'd given her shelter, food, kindness, who expected nothing in return. Every instinct told her to refuse, to maintain independence, to not owe anyone anything. But she was tired of being independent, tired of carrying everything alone. "Okay," she whispered. "Thank you." The drive into the city was quiet. Marcus's truck rumbled north on the Dan Ryan, the Chicago skyline growing closer, towers of glass and steel lit up against the night sky. This was Diane's world, power and money, ambition made concrete. Marcus looked small in it. She directed him to her building in Lincoln Park. The doorman did a double-take when the old Ford pulled up to the curb, but he recovered quickly. "Miss Mitchell, good evening." "Evening, Raymond." Marcus put the truck in park, looking up at the building. 30 stories of luxury condos, doorman, valet, the works. This is where you live? Yes. He nodded slowly, and she saw him recalculating, understanding now the full scope of the distance between their worlds. Marcus! It's fine, he said. You should go. But it wasn't fine. Diane could see it in the set of his shoulders, the way he wouldn't quite meet her eyes. Come up, she said impulsively. Please, just for a few minutes. He hesitated, then nodded. The elevator ride was silent. Diane's penthouse took up the entire top floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, modern furniture in shades of white and gray, art on the walls that cost more than Marcus made in a year. He stood in the entryway, taking it in. This is different. It's empty, Diane said, and realized as she said it that it was true. For all its beauty, all its expense, the space had no life in it. No children's drawings, no photos, no signs that anyone actually lived here. She poured them both water. She had no beer, no soda, just expensive bottled water, and wine she never drank. They sat on the couch, an awkward distance between them. I need to tell you something, Diane said, about who I am, what I do. You develop real estate. Yes, but it's more than that. I buy buildings in neighborhoods like yours, poor neighborhoods, black neighborhoods. I renovate them, make them profitable. Gentrification. The word hung heavy. Diane flinched. It's more complicated. Is it? Marcus's voice was gentle, but his eyes were hard. You buy up property, raise rents, push people out, people who've lived there for generations, replace them with folks who can pay more. I create jobs, improve neighborhoods. For who? He stood. Look, I'm not judging you. You do what you do. But don't dress it up as helping people when what you're really doing is erasing them. Diane stood too, anger flashing. You think I don't know what I am? You think I haven't wrestled with this? Her voice rose. I came from nothing, Marcus. Nothing. I know what it's like to be erased, to be told you don't matter because you're poor and black and from the wrong neighborhood. Then why do it to others? Because I learned to play the game. Because I survived. She was shaking now, and maybe I've made choices I'm not proud of, but I've also made something of myself. I've created wealth. You've recreated the same system that hurt you, Marcus said quietly. Just from the other side. The truth of it hit her like a fist. Diane sank back onto the couch, the fight draining out of her. Marcus sat beside her, close enough that their knees almost touched. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. No, you're right. Diane's voice was small. I tell myself I'm different, that I'm one of the good ones. But I've displaced families. I've raised rents on people who couldn't afford it, all in the name of profit. Why? Because I was afraid. The admission cracked something open in her. Afraid that if I stopped climbing, stopped accumulating, I'd end up back where I started. Poor, powerless, nobody. Marcus took her hand. His palm was rough, calloused from years of work, but his touch was gentle. You're not nobody, he said, but you're also not what you own. The woman who slept on my couch, who tucked my daughter in, who sat on the curb eating sandwiches, that's who you are. Not this. He gestured at the penthouse. Diane looked at their joined hands, her skin smooth and his scarred, her nails manicured and his stained with grease. Two people from the same starting line who'd run in opposite directions. I don't know how to be her anymore, she whispered. The woman I was before all this. Then maybe you need to figure that out. They sat in silence. Outside the windows, the city glittered, indifferent and beautiful. Finally, Marcus stood. I should get back. Kids will be up early. Diane walked him to the door. In the hallway, under the harsh fluorescent lights, reality reasserted itself. He was a mechanic from the South Side. She was a billionaire CEO. They existed in different stratospheres. Thank you, she said. For everything. Your car will be ready tomorrow. I'll call when it's done. Okay. He started toward the elevator, then turned back. Diane, whatever you decide tomorrow, with your board, your company, make sure it's what you want, not what you think you should want. Then he was gone. Diane stood in her empty penthouse, surrounded by everything she'd fought for, and felt more lost than she had in Marcus's garage. The board meeting started at 2 p.m. sharp. Diane arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in her armor, a custom Tom Ford suit, Louboutin heels, her hair styled perfectly. She looked every inch the CEO. The conference room was on the 45th floor of the Mitchell Holdings Tower. 13 board members sat around a mahogany table, most of them men, all of them watching her with varying degrees of hostility. Lawrence Chen, her COO and the architect of this coup, sat at the far end. He smiled when she entered. Diane, good of you to join us. She took her seat at the head of the table. Let's get this over with. Lawrence stood, distributing folders. As you all know, we're here to discuss the future leadership of Mitchell Holdings. The company has lost direction under Miss Mitchell's leadership. Profits are down 12%. Because we've been investing in sustainable development, Diane interrupted. Long-term growth over short-term gains. Investments that haven't paid off, Lawrence countered. Meanwhile, you've been absent, distracted. Yesterday you disappeared for hours without explanation. My car broke down. And rather than handle it professionally, you spent the night in... He consulted his notes. A mechanic's home on the South Side. Highly inappropriate behavior for a CEO. Diane's blood went cold. How did you... We have people who keep track of company assets, including you. She'd been followed, watched. The invasion of it made her stomach turn. What I do on my personal time reflects on this company, Lawrence said smoothly, and the board has lost confidence in your judgment. Around the table, heads nodded. These people she'd made rich, who owed their positions to her vision, were turning on her with practiced ease. I built this company, Diane said, her voice steel. Every single asset, every property, every dollar of a profit, I created that. And we're grateful, Lawrence said, his tone patronizing. But it's time for new leadership, fresh vision. Vision like what? Buying up more neighborhoods, displacing more families, maximizing profit at any cost? She looked around the table. Is that what we are now? We're a business, one of the board members said, not a charity. Diane thought of Marcus's garage, of Jeremiah's wariness, of Maya's innocent trust. She thought of the families she'd displaced, the communities she'd helped destroy, all in the name of growth. You're right, she said quietly. We are a business, and I've lost sight of what kind of business I wanted to build. Lawrence sensed victory. Then you'll step down voluntarily? Diane looked at him. Really looked. Saw the ambition, the hunger for power, the willingness to do whatever it took to win. She'd been exactly like him once. No, she said, I'm not stepping down, but I am making changes. She stood, opened her briefcase, pulled out a document she'd prepared that morning after a sleepless night. Effective immediately, Mitchell Holdings will be restructuring. We're creating a community investment division. $50 million allocated to affordable housing development in the neighborhoods we've gentrified. We're implementing rent control on our existing properties. And we're partnering with local organizations to ensure our developments benefit existing residents, not replace them. The room erupted. You can't do that. That's financial suicide. The shareholders will revolt. Diane raised her voice. I own 51% of this company. I can do whatever I want, and what I want is to build something I can be proud of, something that helps people instead of hurting them. Lawrence stood, his face red. You've lost your mind. You're going to destroy everything we've built. No, Diane said. I'm going to save what matters. She looked around the table. Anyone who doesn't like it can resign. I'll buy out your shares at market value. But if you stay, we do things my way." Silence. Then, surprisingly, the oldest board member, a woman named Patricia who'd been a mentor to Diane years ago, smiled. "About damn time," Patricia said. "I'm in." One by one, others nodded. Not all of them. 3 board members, including Lawrence, walked out. But enough stayed. Diane exhaled. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a start. After the meeting, she stood at the window of her office, looking out at the city. Her phone rang. Marcus. "Your car's ready," he said. "I'll be there in an hour." When Diane pulled up to the garage in a company car, Marcus was waiting outside. The Mercedes gleamed, fully repaired. "Good as new," he said. "Better, actually. Replaced a few other things while I was at it. How much do I owe you?" $400, like I said." Diane pulled out her checkbook. She wrote the amount, then paused. Added another zero, then another. She handed him a check for $40,000. Marcus stared at it. "This is—" "Diane, I can't accept this. It's not charity. It's investment." She took a breath. "I want to help you expand the garage. Buy the buildings on either side, create jobs, training programs for kids in the neighborhood, real community investment." Marcus looked from the check to her face. "Why?" "Because you showed me what I'd forgotten. That wealth isn't just about money. It's about what you build, who you help, the legacy you leave." She stepped closer. "And because I want to be part of what you're building here. If you'll let me." "You want to be part of this?" He gestured at the small garage, the struggling neighborhood. "I want to be part of something real, something that matters." Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. "Okay, but on one condition." "What's that?" "You come to Sunday dinner, regular. The kids have been asking about you." Diane felt her eyes sting. "I'd like that. And one more thing." "Yes? Maybe let me take you to an actual dinner, just the 2 of us, like a date." Her heart stuttered. "You want to date me?" "I want to get to know the woman who tucked my daughter in, who sat on my porch asking hard questions, who had the courage to change." He touched her hand. "If that's okay." Diane looked at this man who'd shown her kindness when she'd needed it most, who'd challenged her without judgment, who'd reminded her of who she wanted to be. "That's more than okay," she whispered. He kissed her then, soft and gentle, and Diane felt something shift into place. Not rescue, not salvation, just possibility. Epilogue. 6 months later. The grand opening of Thompson Community Auto Center drew a crowd. The expanded garage now took up 3 buildings with 6 bays, a classroom for auto mechanics training, and a small cafe run by Lorraine that served the best coffee on the south side. Diane stood next to Marcus as he cut the ribbon. Their hands joined. The kids cheered, all 4 of them, wearing matching T-shirts that said, "Thompson's Crew." In 6 months, they'd created 20 jobs, enrolled 30 students in the training program, partnered with 3 other businesses on the block to create a community development initiative. Mitchell Holdings had taken a short-term profit hit, but applications for their affordable housing units had tripled. The press had been mostly positive. Billionaire CEO revolutionizes community development model. But the real victory was smaller, personal. It was Maya teaching Diane how to braid hair, patient and giggly. It was Jeremiah, slowly warming to her, teaching her to play chess. It was the twins fighting over who got to sit next to her at dinner. It was Marcus, late at night holding her while she worked through the fear that she didn't deserve this family, this love, this second chance at building something meaningful. "You deserve it," he'd whisper. "You deserve all of it." That evening, after the crowd had gone home, they sat on the porch of the house Diane had bought. Not a mansion, just a bigger bungalow 3 blocks from Marcus's old place. Big enough for 6 people and all their noise and love. The kids were inside, voices raised in happy argument about a board game. Lorraine was making tea, humming an old hymn. Marcus pulled Diane close. "You know, 6 months ago, I thought my life was settled. Small. Safe. And now it's messy and complicated and bigger than I ever imagined." He kissed her temple. "And I wouldn't change a thing." Diane leaned into him, watching the sun set over the neighborhood she'd once dismissed, now the neighborhood she called home. "Neither would I," she said. "Sometimes the greatest wealth comes from the things you can't buy, kindness offered freely, family chosen rather than given, love that grows from respect and shared purpose. Sometimes the best thing a broken-down car can do is break down in exactly the right place." Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.